Hello. I want to wish a happy 21 to all of you. Even if, I know if this year was a free trial, some of us might be taking it back. I'm Monica Ayhens-Madon, and I am very pleased to introduce from FOSSHOST. And we have today we have Thomas Markey
Markey.
here. Sorry, this has been a really stressful week, especially if you're in our part of the world, and with stress comes my speech impairment. So it is not your audio, folks, it's my voice. So, anyway, Thomas, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be able to have this talk with you this today. So, should we get started on our agenda?
Of course, yes. So tell us more about FOSSHOST.org, of which you are the CEO and founder, and how you all got started.
Sure. So, yeah, I'm the CEO and founder of FOSSHOST. My name's Thomas Markey. FOSSHOST started in April 2020, really to provide an important service to free and open source software projects and community support groups. Um, I personally am not a software coder or developer. My experience is actually mainly in organizing people and systems and the leadership aspects of that role. Um, so FOSSHOST was always about building a community to support the free open source software community. Um, to those, I appreciate some people refer to it as FOSS, FLOSS, GNU, all those kind of
So
different
many names.
labels. But we went for FOSS host, and that works for us. And our mission statement is quite simple. We provide free cloud computing services and associated hosting services, including collaboration and domain name services to free software projects. Um, what that means is we provide a home to a lot of these free software projects, which they can trust and which grows with them as they grow. So a lot of the projects that we have on board with us today are quite new, enterprising, innovative startup open source projects. And we really share their journey as they become successful and grow over time. That said, we do have a number of larger and more established open source projects, which I'll come on to shortly in another one of my slides. And we have a real mix
Hmm.
of projects that we provide our services to. FOSSHOST was never quite supposed to become so successful. Um, we had an IRC channel on Freenode,
Hmm.
which consisted
Yep.
of myself and a couple of other people, and we had one server. And um, we helped a few projects, and I'm pleased to say that at the end of last year, we counted more than 100 projects benefiting from our service, which we think is a huge achievement to have done in such a uh, small window.
Hmm.
And that number of projects that we continue to support and help on a daily basis is growing. We currently have around 10 to 15 applications per week,
Per week. Wow.
and we currently approve probably around 4 to 5 of those applications.
Hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, our capacity is not infinite, so
Yeah.
we are limited in the number of resources that we can provide.
Yeah, and I think that this is a great point to state that IMakeFOSS is one of those projects, and I know that we are incredibly grateful for that, especially for the instance of this big blue button. And so we're able to do, we not only have the web presence, but we can use an open source product to have these video talks. And it's been incredibly helpful. So thank you for making us one of those projects for this year. And so you all got started in April of 2020. So you really
Correct.
got started as the COVID crisis was really kind of just the magnitude was starting to be known. So how did that play into the origin of FOSSHOST?
Yeah, absolutely. So COVID did play an important role to play in FOSSHOST. It was actually one of the probably the less known reasons of our existence. We realised that a lot of people were unfortunately becoming well, unemployment levels were rising,
Hmm.
and we saw how the effects of COVID-19 were impacting um, society across underrepresented groups as well. Um, and one of the things that we try to do at FOSSHOST is recognise that everybody is equal and fair, and everyone has access to the same equal opportunities. And cloud hosting can be expensive. Um, People will often say to me, "Yeah, but I can pick up a cheap server for $5 or $10 a month." And sure, you can. But here's the difference with FOSSHOST. We provide a support service that costs far more than $10 a month for free. And we provide a promise that we will be there every step of the way with your project forever.
Hmm.
Um, we believe that is priceless, and that is why we are really proud to be able to offer a world class experience and support experience. We've a lot of the team. We currently have 10 volunteers
Hmm.
located globally. A couple of us are in the UK, of which I'm in the UK. Um, we've sat up at 2 o'clock in the morning, UK time, to do migrations for projects.
Hmm.
These are the types of things that you would have to pay a lot of money for with a commercial cloud hosting company. But that's something that we're proud of to be able to offer, and is something that makes us different. In our opinion. Um, so COVID has played a big part in our project, and it's one of the reasons we've probably seen a lot more applications this year, and we will continue to see a rise of applications. Um, Particularly, a lot of the larger projects are seeing a
Hmm.
reduction in the levels of donations that they received pre-COVID, and again, that's somewhere where we can help mop up that disparity.
Yeah, because especially I think as individuals who are starting to be concerned about jobs or worried about their cash flow, then your donations to projects could be going down. And so I think that is, that your service has come in at just the right time with that. And so I know that we talked about, and I just wanted to note this, that you noted that you're not a developer or coder, and I know so many of us who aren't. I am also not. I am a documentation person and a community person. I can write a hello world script in Python and a little bit more, and that's pretty much it. And so, but that you can have these community resources and then get the people who can do those things so that other projects are able to go forward. I think that's absolutely vital. And so I think that's if nothing else, making FOSS is sometimes making resources available for other people who make FOSS products. So,
Absolutely. And one of my tweets actually on the IMakeFOSS Twitter account the other day was actually around how open source projects can almost compare themselves with other projects.
mhm,
Because there's so many open source projects, we only tend to really come together at events, or if we use each other's software. But it'd be nice to almost have like a directory or a platform of where you can build a closer bond with some open source projects and really build and innovate together and build some partnerships. And certainly for 2021, some of the services that FOSSHOST will be offering will be around those types of ideas and topics. And those are some of the things that we've got planned for later this year.
And I think that's absolutely vital because we can otherwise sometimes we get into our little kind of islands there and we forget that there might be someone, a group on a different island who has a product or project that actually dovetails really well with our own. And so having ways, especially this year when getting together in person is still probably not going to happen, and if only so will only happen for a little bit, finding ways to virtually connect and kind of bring our powers together, I think that's an absolutely vital thing.
Yeah, I'm just going to move so that
Okay.
the light turns back on.
No, that happened to me at my last job. That's fine. Okay, I think we've lost you on video there, but I'm sure that he will be right back.
I'm back.
Yep. And if any of you have ever had these lights, they are very good for saving energy. Really annoying if you work fairly still because they will turn off on you. So I did take a look at some of the projects that you all host. I know obviously we are one, but there are you said that there's almost 100 others now. And you have 15 applications per week and about 5 of those go through. Could you maybe tell us about some of these projects?
Sure. So we typically provide hosting to projects that use some kind of open source license. We actually publish on our website, on our documentation wiki, specifically the criteria that is required in order to be approved. So typically, you would be an open source project or a related community website that needs hosting. Your project is promoting, advancing, educating, and benefiting the open source community. We are generally only interested in ethical and friendly projects. So we don't have the resource or the administration to manage projects that are not those things, because that creates headaches for us and ultimately puts our services that have been donated at risk. So we have to be very careful that we only approve ethical and friendly projects.
Which is good. I know that there has been a lot of discourse, especially this past year, but also in the last few years about kind of the ethics of open source. I mean, this is we could have an entire series of talks on this, but it's also good to know that you already had that in mind when you made this.
For sure. We also expect projects to have a basic understanding of Linux and BSD architecture. We unfortunately don't have the time to train projects on these systems.
Especially only with 10 people. That's, yeah.
So we do need people to have that entry level knowledge. We're not necessarily mandating people to be experts, but to have an overall good ground knowledge is useful. Project must be strictly non-commercial. So of course, we wouldn't want to provide hosting to a project that has any commercial venture or gain. And then finally, the project must have a long-term objective. So we don't want to set up hosting for something that really is only going to last for a couple of months, because it's not really worth the time it takes to get to know projects, or resources need to be spread wide and thin, but also be given to projects who are going to get the most use out of them. Um, Actually, based on our eligibility, although it might seem a little bit draconian, um, we haven't had much abuse of our service,
It's good.
and we believe that's paramount to having a strict criteria in place, which is reviewed on a regular basis with all projects.
Hmm.
Um, I think since we started, we've had one abuse report,
With
and again,
100 projects,
that's,
that's not bad.
we believe that's a good reflection of our the enforcement and the policing of the services.
Hmm.
Um,
And it does seem that also kind of like having those criteria and having manageable growth will set you up for further growth in the future too, just to make this all kind of a buildable thing.
Absolutely. So one of the things that's really important to us is creating something that is ultimately sustainable.
Hmm.
A lot of projects ask how our model is sustainable, and maybe if you'll allow me,
Of
I can
course.
give you a small introduction into our model and how
Of
it's
course.
proven to be effective. So it's quite simple, actually. We build relationships with managed service hosting providers. Typically, these can include people like Equinix Metal, who were formerly known as Packet.net. We have a very good relationship with Ed Vielmetti over there, who's one of their open source ecosystem managers. Hi, Ed, if you're watching. Um, but we also have relationships with co-location providers as well, such as FTC servers and custodian data centers. Uh, these providers simply provide the power, the networking, the cooling, the networking, and we will then put our hardware into their racks. So we have a real mix, and they all share effectively one value, which is that they support and understand open source initiatives and projects, and that's
That's
because
really
they use
key.
it themselves.
Hmm.
Um, their engineers, knock engineers, use Linux. Their network uses open source firewalls.
Hmm.
Um, they use the operating systems. Their websites are built on open source stacks and technology. Their monitoring systems use it. Their telephone systems use it. So they get it, and in exchange for their donation, which is given to us in the form of servers or services,
Hmm.
we list them on our website, and they get some exposure from their donations, which in turn raises some credibility for them as an organisation and gives them some positive PR opportunities, which they're then free to use so as how they see fit. Um, and we found that models worked quite well.
Hmm.
We've got that model
Obviously.
working in the United States. It's worked in Europe and it's worked in the UK, and it's been a fairly consistent model which has been adopted, which we've had no sustainability issues with. Um, on my first slide, if I
Hmm.
just go back to it briefly, you'll see that under the FOSSHOST logo there is an ARM64 logo.
Yes, we've seen that.
Now, the ARM64 logo is a new website that we launched um, in December, just as we were going into the new year, which is around a project that's a new project that FOSSHOST has started of enabling ARM hardware in the data center. And we were very lucky and fortunate enough to receive 50 units of ARM hardware from Ampere Computing, which was offered to us in November, which is currently being shipped to multiple regions globally, where we've secured co-location space to build our ARM64 as a service platform.
That is
And that is a new
fantastic.
service. Yeah. So this service is really unique, and puts us in a really strong position, because actually these are assets that we will own and operate,
Mm-hmm.
and we will not necessarily be reliant on a third party to provide that hardware. So it does make us very strong. And our model, where it's previously worked on the basis of receiving donations of hardware, which is kind of rented or leased to us on
Mm-hmm.
a using that sort of marketing perspective, we will now have full control over that hardware, and we'll be able to decide how we use it to benefit the open source community.
So, have there been any projects that have already gotten started on that, or are maybe in the works now that you would be able to talk about?
So we've been accepting applications on our website for the ARM64 as a service project
Mm-hmm.
since the middle of December. We've had a few applications from new and existing projects that we support. Uh, we currently got those in a pre-application queue,
Ah.
where we are building up the interest, and we're seeing, I might be honest, a slow take up initially, but we see
Mm-hmm.
that that will improve once we start to publish more content around our journey and the project and the build. And the reality is, we will probably see lots of applications once it goes live. We will have plenty of capacity to provide
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of open source projects with ARM64 access, which is really interesting and new, because previously this was quite a hard to it was quite hard to source and maintain and access. There was also a cost with it as well, and we will be providing a mixture of services that use the ARM64 hardware that has been donated.
So, what are some projects that, if you could, like, what would be sort of an, well, is there an ideal project for this? Or is it really imaginative and open? What kind of projects could apply?
So the beauty of ARM hardware
Mm-hmm.
generally is that it's an alternative to obviously the likes of Intel,
Mm-hmm.
etc., AMD, etc. Um, there are many devices that use ARM processors, such as
Mm-hmm.
Raspberry Pis
Yep.
and many Android mobile phone devices. But actually, the real reason a lot of open source projects really want to use it is because of its ability to process intense workloads, because of its high CPU counts on a single chip. So the machines that we'll be putting into the data center are 32 core single chip CPUs. Um, and so we will be clustering those, so that projects can then run intensive development builds on them, for example. They'll be able to run testing on this alternative hardware. And that will open and introduce new opportunities for open source projects where historically that maybe was prohibitive. Um, in theory, it will promote the ARM64 ecosystem and raise awareness. Um, so it will provide lots of open source projects with, it will open new doors, and we believe that will improve the open source landscape.
Yeah. As someone who just got one of the Raspberry Pi 400s last month, that is a very exciting thing. And that's really my first venture into ARM computing, and it has been a lot of fun. So, also, it's now why I have three monitors on my desk and not two. So, so I definitely have a few other things that I did want to ask, but I also wanted to ask if there were any slides that you would like to go to before we move to that.
Yeah. So why do we do it? So I think
Mm-hmm.
we've covered that I'm not a software coder.
That's okay.
Um, I think it's important to touch on why we're different,
Mm-hmm.
and why we do it. There are not many people really doing what we do. Um, there's Lance at Oregon State University, who we've got a good close relationship with. But there's also some guys called Tuck's Family which have a presence, I think in France, Europe, who do a similar thing. But there's a few of us who are doing this niche service. We're trying to take more of a refreshed approach. So just to give the viewers an idea as to what that refreshed approach is, we are quite fast at reviewing and approving applications. So typically, we will review an application within 24 hours of it being submitted. And then we look to then build the service following approval within 72 to 80 hours after it's been approved. That can include weekends, depending on when I've got some free time.
Of course.
I've handed things over on Saturday evenings before. But if projects have a really urgent requirement, come and bang on our door, and we will help you if we can. We don't compete with commercial cloud providers. A lot of people may say, why use FOSSHOST instead of AWS? I mean, okay, it's quite self-explanatory. One, AWS charge. Sure, you might be able to get free trial or a free credit, but the reality is they expire. They're not sustainable, and it's not permanent. If you want to pay for it, go ahead. But we don't compete with commercial providers because it's just not the game that we're here to do. We're actually in the process of becoming a UK registered charity. And I'm hoping that our charity registration number will be issued any day.
It's fantastic.
So we have a totally different mission statement and values. And we want to help as many projects as possible to go further together. Yep. And that's actually the last sentence on that slide, which is actually our motto, really, to go further together.
It's a very good one.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. Moving on to slide 4.
Yes.
This will give viewers and people interested in watching this recording an example of the projects we help. So maybe if I can just talk about them briefly.
Of course. I think that these will be familiar names.
Yeah. Some of them are a little bit, they've all joined us at different times, actually. They didn't all join us from day one. But I felt that these were the most interesting. Although we do have lots of other interesting projects, but unfortunately I couldn't fit them onto one slide. So apologies to any projects who are not listed.
Yes, and be sure to go to the FOSSHOST.org site to see many more of the projects.
Absolutely. So they're all on our website. So the Internet Archive, for those of you who don't know, these guys have been around for years and years and years. They do lots of things, but they essentially preserve the history of the internet. So you can go on the Internet Archive way back when machine, and you can put in a website from the 1995 for Google, for example, and you will see what Google's website looked like then. That's just a very straightforward example. But they also do lots of other things, such as preserve documents, games, manuals, videos, footage, newspaper articles, you name it, they have it. They have a new project which they're running with at the moment, which is around some efficiencies with the way that websites are stored. So we donated some resources to their project to assist them with that.
Excellent. And that is how history will be written in, not in decades, but in years. And so having those pages and those resources saved it's absolutely vital work. So
we've then got the Debian project. So we actually have a listing on the Debian website for providing their official developers with hosting for the code testing packages. um, development, general use specifically for the project. We currently provide 7 different developers with virtual machines.
It's
Um,
excellent.
I think the word's spreading within the Debian project that they get a decent service. So we are seeing slowly an uptake in more Debian developers applying. We actually have an agreement with the Debian project, which is that as long as they apply with a Debian.net email address, we will automatically approve their application.
It's excellent.
Because we've approved the project as a whole rather than developers.
It's really excellent.
The macOS icons project is a little bit left field for us, but actually there's a reason we help this project.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we help projects which can benefit other projects that we help. And actually a lot of the artwork that they have on their website can be used to improve the UI and UX experience of some of our Linux distribution projects. The light has gone off again.
Mm-hmm. It's okay.
So if you just bear with me 1 second.
Of course. I think those lights are almost more effective than Fitbits in getting you to stand up.
And I'm back.
Okay.
So it's a left field project, but ultimately improves the design and experience that our other projects can use. So that's why we help them.
Mm-hmm.
IMakeFOSS, for those of you who are not necessarily familiar, it's an open source firewall, which I would say is probably quite popular. Many open source individuals and professionals use it, as well as many commercial businesses as well. I can't quite remember how long IMakeFOSS has been around, but I think it's been around for a while.
I'm sure there will be a user there who might be able to find this. If my husband was in the office, I could just ask him, or he would probably know.
But
it is good to see that these long-standing projects are also moving over.
Absolutely. And if memory serves me correct, IMakeFOSS actually originally started as a fork of IPCOP.
Wow.
So it's a tried and tested Commuter OS. So actually one of the interesting things is since FOSSHOST started, we have found a lot of projects apply who are in India.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular operating system is based on Debian. I would highly recommend going on their very colourful website, which has a proud Made in India logo in the footer, and have a look at it and see whether it's something you might be interested in trialing. Maybe you could download a version on a virtual machine. But the website is very colourful, which I quite like.
That is very cool.
If you go onto the FOSSHOST website on the projects page, you can actually find a link to the Commuter operating system.
Mm-hmm. I might have to try that. All right, so, and then we've got these 3 more here: Packet Frame, GNOME, and ARM BN.
So Packet Frame is actually run by a chap called Nate Sales. Nate is actually heavily involved with the FOSSHOST project.
Mm-hmm.
Nate was actually involved in the very, very early days of setting up FOSSHOST, and is someone that I would probably class as a friend, actually.
Yeah.
Um, he has provided a lot of technical expertise and support to me and the project and our projects and volunteers since we started, and consistently been a real team player and part of the team. So, Nate, if you're watching, keep up the good work. We really appreciate your efforts.
Yeah.
But Packet Frame is Nate's open source CDN for open source projects. It uses some of the FOSSHOST infrastructure, but it also has its own agreements with its own sponsors who donates hardware to Packet Frame, and Packet Frame approves DNS hosting on its Anycast CDN for open source projects. So if you are an open source project and you are looking to move your domain name hosting to somewhere ethical and has good morals and uses a complete open source stack and benefits from the FOSS hosting, onto their website, packetframe.com, and sign up. There is a whole bunch of documentation on the website and an API which can be used to expose all the functionality of the platform.
That sounds fantastic.
So a really great project, and we think it's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
We've then got the GNOME project, and obviously we're all familiar with
Yes,
GNOME.
very much so.
Obviously, the GNOME project is very large. It's a big project. There's lots of developers and things happening.
I understand that you also that one of the projects that falls under GNOME is the GNU Health project.
Yes.
And so and that and tell me how kind of FOSSHOST has helped them and kind of other health oriented projects.
Sure. So we have a couple of health projects that we help.
Mm-hmm.
GNU Health is one of them. One of our volunteers called Corwin, or MPLS Corwin, who's in our ISCA channel. We have a close relationship with the GNU community. One of our trustees, Nicola,
Mm-hmm.
had some early discussions and dialogue with the founder of GNU Health, and we have provided them with hosting, which they use to run some of the services, such as GNU Health Patient, which they provide as a cloud-hosted service to some of their end users. We actually have we speak to or deal with Lewis Falcon Martin, who is the founder of GNU Health,
Mm-hmm.
and we are only more than happy to support their work, particularly around the free Libra Health work they do around public health, social medicine, hospital information systems. So it's a really great project which has a great community social impact. Another health project that we help is a project called Acilia.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend going on their website, acilia.io. They are a non-profit enterprise organization that aims to provide the community with a set of computational tools related to global health drug discovery. So their goal really is to lower the barrier to the development of new medicine by setting up an open source drug discovery system. So they have developed their own predictive models for profiling of finding cures to cures and developing new drugs for um, tropical diseases, for example. Um, they are also a UK registered charity,
Mm-hmm.
and we've provided them with a number of virtual machines to run their computational models. Um, they are actually interested in the ARM64 platform once that goes live
Mm-hmm.
because of its ability to process intense workloads.
Yeah, and that seems like also having there's so much in health, whether it's in the processing speed, or if you're having kind of health programs that need to run maybe in under-resourced areas, we're having kind of these lightweight, low power consuming devices is really helpful. That ARM seems to have a lot of promise there.
Yes. Um, and that actually takes me on to the last project on that list,
Mm-hmm.
which is Armbian. So, for those of you that are not familiar with Armbian, it's effectively a Debian, an Ubuntu based operating system for ARM hardware. Um, and their operating system works on the Pine 64, Pinebook
Mm-hmm.
64, the Asus Tinkerboard, Odroid, Orange Pies, um, Banana Pies, and QB boards, and a whole raft of other supported hardware. So again, another great open source project that is one that we have a close relationship with, and again, we will try and support the Armbian community with the ARM64 platform once that goes live.
It seems like that seems like an incredibly good match.
And actually, before I forget, we actually also offer as hosting service, of which Armbian have their repository on there. So we have a US and a UK mirrors service for a number of open source projects, of which Armbian are one of them.
Excellent. All right. And if you want to go ahead and move to your next slide. Oh, there we go. And this actually is a great place to talk about your community. And if somebody is interested in moving their project over and applying for FOSSHOST, how can the FOSSHOST community help them with this process?
Sure. So we advocate that all projects who are interested in applying for FOSSO services come and knock at our door, or just to enter our IRC channel or Discord, or
Mm-hmm.
send us an email, or just start a conversation with us. Because for us, everything is about conversations and relationships with people. We do get a lot of applications where people just go onto our website and apply when we've never really spoken to them before.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people that works. But typically for the larger, more complex established requests, we try and have that two-way dialogue during or before the application to really understand their needs and requirements. Because quite often we will maybe advise of a better way of being able to do the migration.
Mm-hmm.
Our website is quite, the application form is quite frigid. So if you want something particularly bespoke, the application form sometimes does need, we need to talk to you to tell you how to submit it in the best way so that we build the service properly. Occasionally we will do a bespoke application where we will take your requirements and then we'll go away and draw it and design it and then play it back to you. And, and then we will sort of do the application with you. So it's always a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want people to feel in the dark when they're applying for our services. And it's really important that projects have that confidence and support so that they get the right services. Because the last thing we want to do is move someone's hosting to us to only find that it doesn't quite match what they had before they moved it, or it doesn't work to their doesn't quite work. We want to try and give projects a better experience of what they had previously. So we will always have sensible discussions around the number of memory, cores, and storage. And again, we have so many partnerships with other open source projects. We can pull in experts from certain operating system projects. We can pull in people who know DNS and domain names, CDNs and anycast networks and routing and networking. We can bring in all of those people. We set up channels sometimes for more bespoke requests where we'll get everybody together. We'll even have video calls on BigBlueButton
Hmm.
to go through requirements. So we're not afraid to have those conversations.
And I think that that's good because you mentioned at the start that what you do is build communities and basically and the infrastructure. And so that they're not only kind of joining this service but also joining this community as well. So,
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we're quite big on is projects. Once they become a project, they become an active project, not only
mhm.
with their own project, but with FOSSHOST. And often what we see is when we've provided hosting to a project, many of those then become volunteers of FOSSHOST
And
and
how
help others.
if there are people who would want to get involved and to help boss hosts as individuals, what is there a need for as far as active volunteers go?
So we're always looking to volunteer for new volunteers. Um, Volunteers contribute and volunteer their skills, and there's never really a shortage of that. Um, the types of positions that people can apply for if they're considering volunteering for FOSSHOST or maybe another open source project, but certainly for us, it's people in sort of networking engineer type roles. So maybe where someone has a day job working as a network engineer, but wants to maybe volunteer a few hours a week to an open source project. Um, Web developers,
Hmm.
support liaison engineer type people who can provide support to projects. Because, of course, we have a follow the sun support system. So, because the projects we help are totally global, I mean, I think we have a project in every country across the world.
Yeah.
We don't operate standard support times. I
No
mean, of
one
course,
ever does.
it's best endeavours, but there's never really a shortage of support requests or volunteers for support. Um, another interesting one for us is actually attending open source events and promoting FOSSHOST and advocating our service and talking to people. We believe that this is one of the most effective ways of raising
Hmm.
awareness about the work we do.
Hmm.
Um, People interested in applying for FOSSHOST volunteering opportunities can actually go onto our website and go into the docs link in the footer of the website and then go on to volunteering opportunities.
Excellent. I
I'll
was
put the
just
link into the chat here. Um,
perfect.
we do actually, as a way of saying thank you to those who volunteer. I mean, obviously, we provide full training, but we give any volunteers a Raspberry Pi 4 Model B and also a FOSSHOST goodie bag. And you are more than welcome to use the FOSSHOST services for personal projects within reason.
It's always nice. I mean, besides that kind of warm fuzzy feeling you get for being a contributor, it's always nice to get some, I don't know, some tangible things too, especially if it was a Raspberry Pi. So, and especially with this, especially having that in the context of having this new ARM 64 oriented project. So, I am definitely going to keep that on my watch list for this year. I am excited to see what happens there. And so any kind of last thoughts or things that you would like to share?
Sure. I mean, maybe the ARM64 project is obviously a really interesting one. We're
Hmm.
actually trying to have it. Well, I mean, we're sort of we haven't actually got hold of any of the hardware yet because it's in the process of being shipped to multiple
Yeah.
locations. So it's a little bit difficult at the moment to produce a blog post every single day. Um, but we are overdue a couple of days blog posts, which will appear over the next 24 hours. Um, the purpose of ARM64, though, is that we will publish a daily blog. There is an RSS feed on there as well,
Hmm.
so you can keep track of any new blog posts. And there's also the ability now to comment on the blog posts if there's anything on there that's of particular interest. So far, the blog posts have been around our design,
Hmm.
also our plan design of how we intend to deliver the ARM hardware in multiple locations, and also the sort of administrative side and talking about our sponsors as well, because
Excellent.
ultimately our sponsors are the most important part of that. Without
Hmm.
their sponsorship, we wouldn't be able to do it.
Exactly. Kind of like we are still incredibly grateful to have you as our sponsors and to make a lot of this possible. Is being able to talk with the people who, you're right, it's so interdependent. So that by virtue of you making FOSS, so many other people are able to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for us at the moment, ARM64 is a really exciting project. We're also currently, I'm just going to move again
Okay.
to put the light.
To get
I
the
do
light.
apologise,
That's
but it's
okay. It's
no
okay.
control over.
That light is really bright when it comes back on.
It
All right.
wakes me up. So we've come in terms of the FOSSHOST infrastructure. We've grown to, I think we have 13 nodes now, um, in multiple countries. We're currently going through a process at the moment of making everything consistent and standardized. So what I mean by that
Yes.
is having the same template, the same image, the same configuration, documented configuration, and automated
Hmm.
configuration. Moving away from managing our infrastructure in a manual way. Um, all
Processes
the
are.
lessons, yeah,
Hmm.
all the growing up lessons from going from a small school to a big school. We're going through those growing pains, um, which will be important for scaling ultimately. Because in order to scale our
Exactly.
service, we need to have that baseline in place. So,
Exactly. And so hopefully once that baseline is in place, then the scaling can happen and you can help even more projects.
absolutely, and our aim really, based on our current growth for 2020, is that by the end of 2021, we'll have grown from 100 projects to 400 projects, um, which we believe will be a real success and achievement. Um, and I'd like to take this opportunity to say, we're grateful for Freenode
Hmm.
community for hosting our IRC channel, because we believe that this is one of the best places for our users to come together and access our community. We have relays in place as well on Discord and
Hmm.
Matrix, as well as Telegram, so that we're kind of offering multiple different ways. We have a lot of users in places like China and Asia, where some of these technologies are blocked. So we try and offer them a wider range of mediums to use and clients.
It's always good to be able to meet your future clients and community members where they're at now. And so I think that gives them a lot of choice on how to find you. Yeah. Well, who knows?
I
Maybe.
think,
Oh,
sorry,
sorry
go ahead.
about that. Well, maybe one of those 300 projects for this year, maybe one of the people in charge of those projects is hearing this now and going, oh, I should go over to FOSSHOST.
Yeah. One of the important things that I always like to make clear is that FOSS Host at the moment has entirely runs and depends on donations from our corporate sponsors. When I say corporate sponsors, we don't receive any financial backing or cash. Everything donated to us is in the form of a free donation, um, based on the model that I talked about earlier. Um, so that means that nobody in FOSSHOST is paid. Everybody, including myself, is a volunteer, which we do in our spare free time because we want to.
Hmm.
And so sometimes that means that um, we can't do the same things as a commercial cloud provider can. But we are imaginative and fairly multi-skilled across the volunteering team, and so we can quite often come up with innovative and clever ways of working around some issues and problems, um, which a lot of the projects appreciate. A lot of the projects we help don't necessarily want to use commercial um, subscriptions or services anyway, because it doesn't
Hmm.
fit with the Libra or the sort of GNU um, freedom that um, one can expect.
Excellent. Well, I look forward this time next year to see what projects have been added and also to
Yeah,
see how that growth has, how the support from your sponsors and also new volunteers has been able to make that growth possible.
sure. Yeah, I think next year will be hopefully we'll be out of COVID, and the, the work FOSSHOST will continue to do, and the projects will have continued to help. We'll be really looking forward to that journey. I think there's a lot of exciting things taking place this year. So a final note from me really is thank you for allowing me to um, spend this evening talking about myself and the work FOSSHOST does, and really appreciate your time.
Of
And if any
course.
projects are interested in applying for our services, you can go on our website, which is on the screen now, fosshost.org/apply, and we will review your application within 24 hours.
Of course. And please, especially if you are watching this now or watching this shortly after it was recorded on January 8th, be sure to follow IMakeFOSS on Twitter, and Thomas will be our guest curator through next Tuesday. And so we look forward to your post, especially talking about how we all can help the open source community grow and thrive and be a healthy place. And I just wanted to thank you so much for talking to me.
It's my pleasure. If any projects have got any, or anyone watching has got any questions, feel free to tweet or send me a message on the IMakeFOSS account. I'm happy to answer them.
All right. Well, anyway, Thomas, thank you so much. And it was a pleasure.
Thank you, Monica.
All right. Thank you. Mm, one.
Cheers. Take care now.
Okay. Bye.